remember, they gave everybody in the country money. Um, so there was a lot of stuff that got it down to that incredible number. But but the heart of it is that everybody in America, well, maybe not immigration, maybe not, but etc. Um, and So we know. I mean, we know the consequence of that. People actually went to work more because they get somewhere. All the different things. Maybe helping on a child so that the mom can go to work because actually have a little bit more to be support them. So that's the deal. I mean, it's from my point of view, it's very simple. The amount of money isn't going to turn anybody rich. Um, it clearly is shown that at that level, it helps people to get more money, not stop running. To work because we know what works. And the totality, not just CTC, that's the heart of it. All the other things that should be done at the right level or fixed in various ways. Um, and that's we need to go forward.
And so the CTC really only covers people who have children, right?
Yes, that's right.
And
That's
it's
right.
per
No,
child or something like that?
so no, I mean, people talk about OBI or whatever it's called, and that's very expensive. Um, you and I could design it so that there's a tax that goes with it, so that everybody gets it, but some people pay back with taxes, and then it's not as crazy, but it's hard to sell. Um, but yes, CTC is only for children,
Yeah,
and,
it's hard to
you're
sell because of the whole like laziness perception. Like if you pay people not to work, then no one will work. Which
yeah,
actually,
that's a
what you
big
said, like during the pandemic, paying people not to work made people actually work more. So it kind
yeah.
of had the opposite effect in that regard.
Yes. But, I think that the way to do it is to get CTC back and then get that going, be used to it, and then down the road go so that everybody, even if they don't have children.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, I've got your questions and
Okay.
I hope I have the answers. And
Okay.
you see here, like Robert Kennedy is right behind me there. Uh,
So the Staten Islander News Organization is here today with Professor Peter Edelman. Professor Edelman is currently the Carmack Waterhouse Professor of Law and Public Policy at Georgetown University Law Center, where he teaches constitutional law and poverty law and is faculty director of the Georgetown Center on Poverty and Inequality at Georgetown University Law. He has written extensively on the topics of poverty and inequality in America, including the books So Rich, So Poor, Why It's So Hard to End Poverty in America. Oh, sorry, I just realized. Okay. To End Poverty in America, and Not a Crime to Be Poor, The Criminalization of Poverty in America. He has served in all branches of government, including as a legislative assistant to Senator Robert F. Kennedy and as issues director for Senator Edward Kennedy's presidential campaign in 1990. During the Clinton administration, he filled various roles, including counselor to HHS Secretary Donna Shalala and then assistant secretary for planning and evaluation. He famously resigned from the Clinton administration on the passage of the 1996 welfare reform legislation, which has had disastrous and often hidden effects on the real, actual, impoverished people in America, although it may look good on paper. It is a pleasure to have you with us today, Professor Edelman, and welcome.
Thank you. I'm delighted. Thank you.
So my next question was, there are judges in traffic bureaus who are known for increasing fines without just cause, dismissing evidence without due consideration, suspending licenses of working people without cause, which those working people need in order to drive to work and feed their families, and otherwise making the lives of those unfortunate enough to be in their courtrooms more difficult. Have you come across similar stories of miscarriages of justice in your interviews with low-income people around the country?
Yes. Well, but the kind of shocking thing is it was going on, and it affects people in so ways. I mean, if somebody is in prison, and that's only a part of it, and what we'll talk about is people who never were in prison, but just on prison, all the things you can't do once you've been in prison. You can't get a job, you can't get a public housing, and this is ruins their lives. That's just one part of it. But to start on the broader thing, about Ferguson.
Yes.
Well, Ferguson is incredible because that's less than 10 years ago, or about 10 years ago, and this was going on, and this I'll talk about all over the country, and everybody thought it was just that was happening in my town, when in fact it was going on all over the country. And what happened in Ferguson, well, first, this is a terrible thing. Man Brown was murdered by the police in Ferguson, and so it was at a time when we had a Democratic president. And when they went down there to find out about that, and the fact that this man was murdered, what they also found was that the way they ran their city was crazy. Because now again, these things, as I took you through a whole history thing on welfare, what Ferguson is about is really about President Reagan, because what he does to have taxes, he tells the whole country that taxes are bad and we shouldn't have them. And it becomes politics for the whole country because with his, he smiles. And so essentially it says open up everywhere and stop having the appropriate kind of tax that you should have. So Ferguson decides, or can't, but I think just really made a decision not to bother with much in the way of taxes. And what they did instead, and it's a large, over half of it is black, but because of the politics there, it was their own fault in a sense. That doesn't help. It's whites that are running the place. And it's unbelievable, but the way they're getting the money is getting on everything they can think of, and it's a lot of it's traffic stuff. Some of it's from their own place, but most of it is in their own city. but also anything else that they can. If you didn't do your lawn, etc. Crazy.
So what you mean is like in Ferguson they had like a ticketing kind of thing going on? So like they were ticketing people for every little thing that they could find to ticket someone for.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
I'll give you a story since we're doing the long thing. So it's a man named Adel Edwards from Pelham, Georgia, who has a significant intellectual disability and he can't read and write. So he's fined $500 for burning leaves without a permit, and another 528 for so-called probation run by a for-profit company. Well, he can't come up. So they say, well, you could, we'll be nice, and you can only have to pay $250 now.
Okay.
He doesn't have that either. So he's put in jail. Now, it happened in that particular case, a lawyer found it. That's very unusual. But this is a woman, Sarah Garrity, Southern Center for Human Rights. This is a black man and low income, and he went to court because it was unconstitutional, and they beat him. But, winning that is about one out of, I don't know, thousands. But so that's a giving example of how it works. It's a national thing. And what happened because of Ferguson and DOJ, a good friend of mine, Jonathan Smith, was working at DOA, and they wrote a book. It was two of my three books are from the New Press, and DOJ went to the press and put it out as a book, and people saw it all over the country. So the people, and then after that, Fines and Fees Justice Center. If you read their work, and I'm on the board of that, is been working ever since then. It's been far not finished. And as you put the quest, the biggest single piece of this, apart from the prison thing that I said, is taking away people's driver's license. And it's billions. It's billions of money. And the center that I just talked about is working at the whole country. And they've gotten 23 states to cut out on that.
The suspension of driver's license.
Yeah.
And the suspensions of driver's licenses, those are those usually temporary, or they were like permanently suspending someone's license?
Well, no, what happens is that when it goes back to what I'm telling you about Adel Edwards, because when they hit you on that, and this isn't about hurting anybody. I mean, this is junk stuff. You had on your car. And these are people who don't have money. So, the number,
they have to drive to work also.
And remember, they're trying to get money to run their place, their county or their city or their state. And so they say you have to pay the kind of numbers that I said. And it isn't just the fine, it's also these fees, which are bullshit. and they have, it's having a library somewhere. Um, and if you can't pay, you go to jail. And once you're in the pay anything that in there, they make you pay. I told you about Edwards. I said a for-profit company. That's about, if I remember the number, something about 20 or so, but it's well over 30 states in regular places, who like you and I think of as a public thing. Uh, in state after state, they charge. Um, and if you're brought in about diversion, so you don't have to go there, but you have somebody to support you, kind of thing. You have to pay for that. Um, and
So you
so
have to pay for representation in these places, like
no,
that thing that's in the Constitution you talking about, like, or not for criminal, like
no,
for.
no, no. I'm not talking about the lawyer. I'm talking about the aspects of running the system.
Okay,
Uh,
so
you
court
know,
costs and stuff like that kind of
yeah,
thing.
everything like that. And so it goes like that for
Right,
people,
right,
and they can't get out of it.
right. And then so then they have their license suspended, and they can't get to work, so then they can't get money to then pay the fine to get their license back, and it's like an
That's
endless
right,
loop.
right. So they hit you one, and then you have, well, hey, I got to get my kid to school, or I got to get to work.
Right, and so you drive with a suspended license and
Yes,
then get
yeah,
arrested. Yep.
yes, and so you take all of that, is why it was such a big thing, and it's still not fully done. But as I said, the Fines and Fees Center is doing huge, wonderful work on that.
Mhm. So, the
By the way, just to give you the exact numbers, I'm looking at it here on the probation. It's 13 states that are for profit, and altogether 44. Uh, that's 31 of public. Those are the exact numbers. I have it right here.
and that means that the companies that are charging the probation fees are for-profit companies.
The,
Is that what you mean?
the 30, the 13 is for
Thir-
profit.
13 of them are for-profit. Okay.
Yeah, but even more shocking is 31 of them are public agencies.
Right.
Uh, you know, and but they're running their place, so yeah.
Um, so the next question is, your work presently includes acting as the chair of the DC Access to Justice
Oh
Commission.
yeah, yeah. No, I thought we
Um,
were done, but I see we're. I'm good. I'm good.
Can you please describe for us the purposes of this commission?
Yes. Well, it really connects to everything that we've talked about today, uh, because everything that we're talking about, just you could just go down, tick, 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 tick. Um, a lot of times, lawyer would be irrelevant, but a huge number it would help. Uh, and of course, if you do it right, the lawyers should connect to the health and all the other things. And that you probably know, there's 300 places in the country, and we have one at our law school, where those are students, but where lawyers are placed in hospitals, and well, you can hear where that's going to go. And it started, it's not that old. It should have been there for 200 years, but it's about 30 years. Somebody from Boston started it. So having lawyers who would help low-income people are extremely important. And the fact is, this is something that is a disastrous situation that nobody knows.
Right.
You and we do, and we know a few other people. Um, but I mean, just to give you I could just do it in one sentence, and that is in D.C. And we got we're good people, and if you're criminal, the Constitution says you have to have a lawyer, and on the civil side, there's no such thing. And people don't understand that. On the street, lots and lots of people think it's all the same thing, and it's not. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the commission. But even with everything that we've done with the commission, and they're shockingly good, and not nearly what it should be, the people losing their homes, evicting, in DC, when they're brought into the court, the number who do not have a lawyer are 88%. Well, that just tells you the whole story right there. I mean, anything other, somebody beats up their wife or everything, same kind of thing. Around 90%. And indeed, if you look around the country, the 12 is actually a lot, because what we've done, and it isn't what we do, isn't just money, which I'll explain to you. It's also things to make the system work better. So the commission, there are 40 states that have them. We think we're the best. But California is terrific, and New York is good, and a few other places, Minnesota, state of Washington, and so on. The chief judge, the state chief judges, about almost 25 years ago, a couple less than that, 20 plus, got together and said we should create these commissions. And they vary. We and a few others are the best. Okay, so the biggest thing, but not the only thing that we've done, is we got money from the city council. That the state, if we were a state, should be a state. And when we created the thing, we didn't actually quite know what to do to have the commission, and we said, gee whiz, the city council wasn't giving any money to get lawyers for low-income people. And we got to sit, and I'm a little bit political and so on, and there had been some people, or whatever, had some of the people, the lawyers, the bar people, didn't get it. Anyway, in about 20 years ago, we got money, and we got 3.2 million. And last year it got to up to over 31 million.
And that's from the state.
This is just the state.
Okay.
There's other money that we get through the law firms and other things, but yes, and there's a huge problem right now because the mayor was having a bad year, and the mayor isn't our kind of person. Knocked our 31 down to 13 million right now. We've got it up to 17 right now at the committee level, and our chiefs of the of their boss loves our stuff. So we're going to find out how much more we can get back up to 31 million. So that's extremely important. And we've also been active in getting money from the non-public side. So we started that thing that we do with the whole system. Started with 3 million, and that's 7 million. Okay, and then but there's then the question is, how do you get, and it's a variety of things, and it's not easy, but to find people in a way it's maybe a little bit like your Alice in some way, people in the community who know that there are actually law problems that people have that don't even know they have law problems, and like the thing of the hospital that I talked about.
Mhm.
So we're working to work on reaching the community so that they even know there are lawyers available. And then all kinds of ways of making it easier. I mean, what you were talking about, going to the welfare place and how bad they do that. Well, the courts aren't that bad, but they're hard to deal. You
Yeah.
probably have some of that. And so we're trying to make that easier in various ways, simpler, the paper, having people around who were there in the court to show people what to do, build that same kind of thing, really what I just said, in the community, those kinds of people to help people. And in a few states, we're having something that's we've talked for a long time. That's not me, but I mean we to have jobs to help people and paid that lawyers do who don't have to be lawyers. And
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And to be able to pay those people who aren't lawyers, you mean to like defend somebody? Because right
yeah,
now I know that you can't do that. You can't pay someone to represent you, but someone can represent you. At least that's how it is in New York. So you're talking about like making it so that people who are like learning law or who know enough can represent somebody and you don't have to actually be a lawyer.
yes. And there are a lot of things. If, for example, somebody to get SSI, uh, you know, did I hit something? Can you hear me?
No, I'm good. You're good.
Yeah, my finger hit something. And so somebody to get SSI for a young person, you don't have to have a lawyer for that. And there should be a whole setup for that. Anyway, those are the kinds of things that we're doing, and it's just really important. And the larger point is for the people of the paper to understand that on the civil side, there's nothing that says you have to give people lawyers. So that's what we do.
Right, right. And so when you say you have lawyers in hospitals, is that like, because I know like there's something else with lawyers in hospitals where they talk to somebody who's injured and they see if they want to sue somebody. So that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about for patient advocacy kind of stuff, or like if they're having an issue. Like what would the lawyers in the hospitals
Well,
like?
a simple example would be that everybody comes through at the child hospital. And just like they look their blood and yada yada, they talk to that office. And it turns out that the house has rats.
Okay.
And so the lawyer goes and uh, starts something to stop that. Whatever
Okay.
you would do to get the and to make sure that people don't get kicked out because of the rats, when what they should do is they should stay and get rid of the rats.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so
Okay.
that's an example. But it could be any kind of things that the family might have about, problems that they might have. I mean, you could think of list. Uh,
That makes sense. Okay.
yeah, no, and as I said, there are 300 of those in the country. It's a very, very powerful thing.
Yeah, I know in New York City, for people who are facing eviction, at the courthouse where they would have to go to court with their landlord, there's a free lawyer that they can get. And I don't know how many people know about that. I don't know if it's well known or not well known. But they help the person, whereas a landlord has to hire an attorney, like by law in New York. So the landlord has an attorney, and they're facing someone who generally doesn't. But I don't know how many people know that they can just talk to the lawyer there, and that lawyer can actually be with them in the proceeding and represent them there as well.
Yeah, we have that. It's set it up a little bit different, but in our lawyers, um, and because we have this money that I was telling you, we have people who sit in the court. That's what you're talking about.
Okay, yes. Oh, that seems much more effective, and they can go around and say, do you have a lawyer? Do you need a lawyer, etc.
Yeah,
That makes more sense.
yeah.
They might be doing that in New York City. I don't know. I've actually
Mhm.
not been
But
to.
these don't work for the court. These are people who are nonprofit
Right.
providers who have put one of their people or two or three, um, and we have a whole, I think you do in New York, the whole question of eviction. We have a separate court for that. Um, yeah, no, what you're talking about makes sense too. I mean, you don't have to do one or the other.
And what are some of the proposals that the commission has put forth to rebalance justice in this country or in their state?
Well, really, what I've been talking about.
It's just give access to lawyers to people who need
Well,
that.
to understand that the whole system is awful, just that point. And then what goes with them, we want to, I did not say, and it's something that we work on with the bar, to get more lawyers to give some part of their time for free.
Right.
And that doesn't do everything. But in fact, in our city, I think in your cities, a certain number of lawyers. I mean, there's a bunch of people who could care less, but there are a lot of people who really do want to help, and
Yeah.
so that's very, very important. So, anyways, I talked about how about doing things where you don't have to have lawyers, but also we should be looking for more lawyers to do things for free. And
So
then
what you're
also,
talking about is like on the national bar examination, like on the rules for them to make it so that each lawyer has to give a certain amount of their services for pro bono. Is that like what you were saying, like as an idea?
it could be,
Okay.
or it wouldn't be national, but it would be. I guess the ABA could strongly suggest it. Sure.
Okay. And then why is the child tax credit so important for low income populations?
Well, just to sort of go over what we talked about, but a little more specifically about that. You had the welfare story and you had the TANF story, and since 1997, there has been CTC, and it was created, and this is politics, that this was money going for people had a certain amount at the bottom that isn't in it, and it goes up to middle. But because the politics at the very bottom that says you have nothing, you nonetheless get this. The Republicans said those are people who are lazy or, etc. on that. So there are a few wonderful people in the both sides, House and Senate, starting in maybe 2003, around there, gradually making it down at the bottom, but not getting all the way to the bottom. But they were telling their other people, this is what we're doing, and they're push, 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 push. And the way they would do it is every time that the Republican did a terrible thing to the taxes and made them down, the Democrats said, well, if we're going to live with that, you got to give us a little of this stuff on the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good. And well, it's good and it's bad. So they got it down pretty low. And in 21, with the American Rescue Plan, they got it down to zero. And so once you go to zero, it operates in a completely different way, because it's a tax thing. You don't have to go to a place and say, please, you get it. That's still not easy, because you got to tell people that you have that. You do have to ask, but you ask on a piece of paper. You don't go and say please. So it was, they got it around, didn't reach everybody, but it got a lot of people, and it had essentially had enormous, and there's a lot of reaching, research working with it to see this is how it happened. It wasn't, there's a few other things that was, they raised SNAP for the year, and unemployment they made better. There were a bunch of other things. There was, you remember, they gave everybody in the country money. So there was a lot of stuff that got it down to that incredible number. But the heart of it is that everybody in America, well, maybe not immigration, maybe not, but etc. So we know, we know the consequence of that. People actually went to work more, because they get somewhere, all the different things, maybe helping on a child, so that the mom can go to work, because actually have a little bit more to support them. So that's the deal. It's from my point of view, it's very simple. The amount of money isn't going to turn anybody rich. It clearly is shown that at that level, it helps people to get more money, not stop running. So that's the CTC, and we came so close in then, and we would have gotten it for longer years, except for those two Democrats in West Virginia and in the West, in Arizona. Because this president, I I have to tell you, I didn't particularly like him. because the history of him, some things that he did were not so good. But he was the only person that could be president there. And I think he's been, I could say about this or that, but basically it's incredible. I mean, what I told you before about the 11 under Clinton and the 48, this is a real democratic, I could go better, but this is a real democratic president. So that's CTC. And so the question is, can we do it? We're not going to get it this year for sure. But, if we get the House, which we can, and hold the Senate, maybe 2 years from now, or at least to work, because we know what works. And the totality, not just CTC, that's the heart of it. All the other things that should be done at the right level or fixed in various ways. And that's we need to go forward.
And so the CTC really only covers people who have children, right?
Yes, that's right.
And it's your child or something like that?
So, no, I mean, people talk about OBI or whatever it's called. And that's very expensive. You and I could design it so that there's a tax that goes with it so that everybody gets it, but some people pay back with taxes. And then it's not as crazy, but it's hard to sell. But yes, CTC is only for children.
It's hard to sell because of the whole laziness perception. Like if you pay people not to work, then no one will work. Which actually, what you said, during the pandemic, paying people not to work made people actually work more. So it kind of had the opposite effect in that regard.
Yes, but I think that the way to do it is to get CTC back, and then get that going, be used to it, and then down the road go so that everybody, even if they don't have children.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so are there some states or countries around the world that could offer us solutions where things are working well, where they have low poverty and things of that nature that you've experienced in you're speaking with people and in your work?
Well, everybody. I mean, not precisely. I don't know how UK is doing now, but for a while it was very good. And I don't know how they're going right and left and stuff now, but and in France and Sweden and those Netherlands and so on, they all are better. We're the worst. I'm sure I could send you, or you could find how low we are compared to just about everybody.
Well, I know in healthcare, I didn't know, I haven't looked in poverty, but I know in terms of healthcare in the world, France and the other ones, Sweden, Switzerland, and those ones are like the top 4, and we're like number 37. So.
Well, there you are. It's the same thing on money.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. Everybody has a setup, whether you call it welfare or something else. The basic amount of money that everybody gets. I don't know in those countries whether we're talking about children or the whole thing. I'm not sure. But yeah, you got the deal. Okay. What you saw about the health, it's the same on money.
So, is there anything else that you wanted to add today that we haven't covered in detail?
No, you're terrific, and we've covered. We could go into. Well, here's an example. We didn't talk that much about mass incarceration. Uh, and in fact, I did the in my book, and the whole question of bail and the problems of that. I mean, this is one of the issues. But really, the whole system is just wrong. And we have too many laws that are called criminal. A whole bunch of things at the bottom should be just knocked out.
Mhm.
And that gets back to what we did talk about, because they were getting all that money from the people. That's so we talked about it in that sense. But also to go through everything and say, do we really need to have that many years? And of course, that immediately gets into trouble. Um, but the whole system is wrong. And beyond the things that I've said, everything that, and again, we've implied this and said some of this, is when X is an S is a problem, your first idea of putting them into prison should be the last.
Mhm.
And you can next sentence, but all the ways in the family, etc., so that the bottom line is not going, because they dealt with what it is. Well, we're backwards. So, and that's a huge uh, part of this whole problem, because so many people get connected to it and it ruins their lives. So yes, I guess I would at least add that. I mean, I can take you through education, except I'm not as much on an education person, but et cetera. We could take everything that you started and open it up and say, this is what we need to do this on everything. The health system isn't, I mean, it's way better than it was from 1965. But there's so much that could be so much better. And it's expensive to do it too. So that's a question. But I could take you, and you don't, you know, um, everything that we've opened up here, even by one word, um, is we can start up, another few hours. Um, I teach my students about poverty. I teach, that's what I do. Um, and I tell you that I love the fact this is the biggest law school in the country. Um, and we're I think the best public interest place as well. I mean, there are others. Um, but I've got a huge number of people who want to do things about what we're talking about.
Mhm.
And what I teach is essentially so that they can go more deeply on these things. I more or less took you through an hour plus. Uh, I do a whole thing about, we talk about the money, we talk about disability. We talked a little bit. You told a story about that. Um, and each of that, and then everything about all those things that we talked about, and of course some of the other things are education classes in themselves, but at least I'm giving them something. And why are they doing this? Because these are people who want to work on both sides, on the civil side and the criminal side, and they understand to actually do those works, and we talked about some of them. They should take a class that takes the whole part of it. So that's what I do, and I don't know all that stuff. I have uh, people who come who are experts. I'm in D.C. We got everybody, uh,
Mhm.
you know, who come. Um, So that's super.
No, that's really good. Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. And I know there were so many things that we briefly touched on that could go into so much more detail. Just like it's such a big problem to kind of tackle. But I look forward to speaking with you again, and we can set that up and have another interview and go into detail about any one of the topics that we kind of touched on today. That would be great.
Sure. Well, you're terrific.
Thank you so much. And it was really great to meet with you. And so I'm gonna end the interview.